It weighs 1.9 megabyte. That is smaller than most email attachments. Smaller than a single photograph taken on a modern smartphone. You could store thousands of copies of it on a USB drive you bought for pocket change. And yet this 1.9 megabyte file, written by a single developer named Batard, has become one of the most persistent headaches in the history of the world's largest software company. Microsoft has tried to block it, worked around it, killed one of its features, then watched it come back, then tried to block its ability to download files from Microsoft's own servers, and then watched it come back again. The tool is called Rufus, which stands for Reliable USB Formatting Utility with Source. It is completely free. It has no subscription fee, no premium tier, no advertising, no telemetry. It runs without installation. You download the file, double-click it, and it works. Every single time Microsoft has moved to tighten its grip on Windows, Rufus has found a way around it, and in 2026, it is still happening. To understand why Rufus matters, let's travel a few years back. Windows 11 launched in October 2021 with a requirement that had never appeared in any previous version of Windows. Every PC running it would need something called a Trusted Platform Module, version 2.0. A TPM is a small security chip, either embedded on the motherboard or integrated into the processor, that handles encryption keys and verifies the system boots what it is supposed to boot. Microsoft's stated reasoning was security. The company argued that TPM 2.0 was the foundation of a more secure Windows. The problem was that a massive number of perfectly functional computers did not have it. Older but capable machines built before 2016, home-built PCs with TPM disabled in the BIOS, budget systems that never shipped with the chip at all. Microsoft's own health check tool told millions of users their machine was not compatible. For those people, the message from Redmond was essentially, buy a new computer. The backlash was significant, but Microsoft held its ground. The TPM 2.0 requirement was not going to move. Then Rufus released an update that made the requirement disappear. Batard had been building Rufus since 2011. It started as a lightweight replacement for a clunky HP formatting tool, one that many IT professionals found too slow and too limited for the work they actually needed to do. Batard built something faster and open source, released it for free, and kept updating it without any commercial backing whatsoever. It was portable and reliable. IT professionals used it to flash operating systems onto machines that had no working OS. Home users used it to reinstall Windows after a system failure. System administrators used it to deploy operating systems across entire fleets of machines. By the early 2020s, it had become the trusted go-to for anyone who needed to put an operating system onto a USB drive. When Microsoft announced the TPM requirement, Batard did not lobby Microsoft. He did not publish an open letter. He updated his software. Rufus now offered what it called an extended installation path. When you created a Windows 11 installation drive using Rufus, a small dialog box appeared. It gave you checkboxes. One removed the TPM 2.0 requirement. One removed the secure boot requirement. One removed the minimum RAM threshold. Check the boxes, write the drive, and your older computer could run Windows 11 regardless of what Microsoft's own installer said. A 1.9 megabyte file had negated a hardware requirement that Microsoft had spent months defending. That was only the beginning. Microsoft's second major move came with a feature called Bypass NRO. This sounds technical, so let's explain it plainly. Windows 11, from its launch, had been pushing users to create or sign in to a Microsoft account during installation. For a generation of users who believe, with considerable evidence, that Microsoft collects more data than they consented to share, this was not a welcome development. There was a workaround. You could open a command prompt during setup and type a short script command, ubi/bypass NRO, which stood for Bypass Network Requirement, and the installer would let you create a local account instead. No Microsoft account required. Starting with Insider Preview, Microsoft removed that script entirely. The company published an official blog post explaining the decision. It said, And these are Microsoft's own words, that the change was made to enhance security and user experience of Windows 11, adding that the change ensures that all users exit setup with internet connectivity and a Microsoft account. To translate that into plain English, Microsoft wanted your email address and your data in their account system. The workaround that let you avoid that was now gone. Rufus responded within days. Version 4.7, released in April 2025, automatically recreated the functionality that Microsoft had just deleted. Rufus did not bring back the script. It did something cleverer. It made the necessary registry edits during drive creation to restore the same result, so that when you booted from the Rufus-created USB drive, the option to create a local account was waiting for you, exactly as it had been before. Microsoft had erased a feature. Rufus put it back. By this point, the pattern was becoming clear to anyone watching. Microsoft would tighten a restriction. Rufus would work around it. Microsoft would close that specific door. Rufus would find another way through. The third confrontation arrived in February 2026, and it was the most direct yet. Rufus has a companion script called Fido, which is a small open-source PowerShell helper that allows the tool to fetch official Windows ISO files directly from Microsoft's own download servers. This meant that users could open Rufus, tell it to download a Windows 11 ISO, and Rufus would pull it straight from Microsoft without redirecting users to a browser or a third-party site. Clean, fast, and using Microsoft's own authentic files. In the second week of February 2026, that stopped working. Users attempting to download the latest Windows 11 Insider Preview builds through Rufus began receiving an error with Microsoft's internal code 715-123130. The block page told users, in Microsoft's language, that some users, entities, and locations are banned from using this service. Scripts were being rejected. Interactive browser downloads, including Microsoft's own media creation tool, continued to work. Pete Batard went to GitHub and wrote what he actually believed had happened. His words, documented in coverage by NeoWin and Windows Central in February 2026, were, "They are detecting the script," which quite frankly is not that hard to do since it is open source, though it does require active intentional involvement from Microsoft to break the script downloads. And then he went further. I am pretty sure Microsoft paid one of their employees to figure out a way to break the Fido downloads explicitly and then implemented that on their servers. Those are strong words, and it is important to be precise here about what was confirmed and what was not. Several independent analysts who examined the block found that it may not have been aimed exclusively at Rufus. Even direct downloads from Microsoft's own website were performing similar checks. The block appeared to affect any scripted or automated request that did not replicate the full interactive browser session Microsoft's servers expected. Whether that was a deliberate move to kill Fido specifically, or broader anti-abuse hardening that caught Fido as collateral damage, Microsoft never confirmed. The company did not issue a statement. It did not acknowledge Batard's accusation. It did not say whether this was policy or coincidence. What is confirmed is the outcome. Batard enlisted developer William Bullen, who reverse-engineered the new verification checks and figured out how to root around them. A new version of Fido was released. The changelog read simply, "Restore Windows 8 through Windows 11 ISO downloads." And beside the fixed description was a note that read, "Huge thanks to William Bullen for figuring that one out," followed by a trophy symbol. Microsoft had moved. Rufus had moved faster. Downloads were working again. A single open source project, with no corporate backing, no legal team, and a file size smaller than most photos on your phone, has now gone around Microsoft's restrictions at least 3 separate times across 4 years. Does that tell you something about how much Microsoft actually needs those restrictions to be technically unbreakable? Or does it tell you something about how much they are counting on most users simply not knowing a workaround exists? Let us know what you think in the comments. By April 2026, Rufus version 4.14 had added something that no version before it had attempted. It was called the quality of life option. When you created a Windows installation drive using Rufus 4.14, a new checkbox appeared. The Rufus changelog described what it did in language the developer clearly did not soften for public relations purposes. It said the option disabled Teams, Outlook, Copilot, and other Microsoft-forced nuisances. The Force ISOPS analysis confirmed what that single checkbox actually did in practice. When enabled, Rufus configured the installation to disable or remove Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Outlook, Copilot, and other apps that Microsoft installs by default, apps that run in the background and consume system resources even if you never use them. What the tech community calls bloatware, and what Rufus's developer called, without ambiguity, forced nuisances. Think about what this represents. The company that makes Windows has been increasingly using the operating system itself as a delivery vehicle for services, subscriptions, and account capture. Teams shows up on your fresh install. Outlook is there. Copilot is there. OneDrive prompts you to sync your files. The Bing search experience is integrated into the Start menu. Fast Startup is enabled by default. Widgets, suggested content, and Microsoft account prompts appear throughout the setup process. The new out-of-box experience encourages you to sign in before you even reach the desktop. None of these are accidents. Every one is a deliberate product decision made by Microsoft about what a new Windows installation should look like. Viewed individually, each decision may seem relatively small. A pre-installed app here, a default setting there, an extra prompt asking you to connect an account. But together, they move Windows away from being just an operating system and toward becoming a platform for Microsoft's wider ecosystem of cloud services and subscriptions. The operating system is no longer only the software that lets your computer run. It has also become the front door to Microsoft 365, OneDrive storage, Copilot, Bing services, Teams collaboration, and the company's broader account ecosystem. That is exactly why the additions to Rufus attracted so much attention. The new quality of life options are not adding features that Microsoft forgot to include. They are removing features that Microsoft intentionally chose to include. Before Windows even finishes installing, a user can decide that Teams is unnecessary, Outlook is unnecessary, Copilot is unnecessary, OneDrive is unnecessary, the Bing search integration is unnecessary, Fast Startup is unnecessary. A single checkbox turns those decisions back over to the person installing the operating system instead of leaving them as Microsoft's defaults. For the viewer watching this, the practical picture in 2026 looks like this. Imagine you have a perfectly functional desktop built several years ago. Microsoft's PC Health Check tells you it is not eligible for Windows 11 because it lacks a supported TPM configuration or another required feature. Officially, you are encouraged to replace the hardware. Using Rufus, you create a Windows 11 installation drive anyway. During setup, a dialog appears with options to remove the TPM requirement, secure boot requirement, and minimum memory checks. Another option restores the ability to create a local account instead of signing in with a Microsoft account. Another removes the collection of Microsoft applications and defaults that you never planned to use in the first place. By the time Windows starts for the very first time, the operating system already looks much closer to the version you actually wanted. Even obtaining the installation media becomes simpler. Instead of hunting through Microsoft's website, opening multiple browser pages, or relying on mirrors from third-party download sites, Rufus can retrieve the official Windows 11 ISO directly from Microsoft's own servers through its integrated downloader. You are still installing Microsoft's operating system using Microsoft's own installation files. Rufus simply makes the process more direct and gives you more choices before setup begins. That distinction matters. Rufus is not replacing Windows with another operating system. It is not modifying Microsoft's source code. It is not distributing unofficial copies of Windows. It works with Microsoft's publicly available installation media while changing configuration choices that affect how Windows installs on your own computer. Microsoft has spent years adding new requirements, new defaults, and new onboarding flows designed around its vision of the Windows experience. Rufus has spent those same years giving users the ability to opt out of many of those choices before the first login screen ever appears. One company keeps building additional layers into the installation process. The other keeps adding checkboxes that let users decide whether those layers belong there at all. Microsoft has positioned the TPM requirement as a security measure, and that framing deserves to be taken seriously. TPM 2.0 provides genuine hardware-backed security features, including stronger encryption key protection, measured boot, and support for technologies such as BitLocker and Windows Hello. Those are meaningful improvements, particularly for enterprise environments and devices that store sensitive information. But many users were never debating whether TPM has security benefits. Their frustration came from being told that a computer which continued to function perfectly well had suddenly become ineligible for the latest version of Windows. Others simply wanted to install the operating system without tying it to an online Microsoft account or accepting a collection of applications they had no intention of using. Rufus exists in precisely that gap, between what Microsoft recommends and what many users prefer, between the official installation path and the flexible one, between the defaults chosen by a software company and the choices made by the person who actually owns the computer. That gap has kept Rufus relevant for 15 years, and every major change Microsoft makes to Windows seems to give it another reason to exist. Rufus 4.15 is the current version, released June 30th, 2026. The GitHub repository has accumulated over 36,000 stars from developers who track and endorse the project. Pete Batard has been updating this tool alone, without corporate backing, for 15 years straight. No salary, no investors, no marketing department, just updates. Every new Windows release, every installer change, every new restriction has been met by someone paying attention, reading the documentation, testing the changes, and shipping another version of Rufus. That consistency is part of why the tool has earned so much trust among system administrators, repair technicians, developers, and everyday Windows users alike. And through all of it, Microsoft has never won in a way that lasted. Every restriction became a version number. Every block became a changelog entry. The TPM requirement found a workaround. The forced Microsoft account requirement found another. The broken ISO downloads came back. Even Microsoft's growing collection of default apps and setup preferences became another checkbox inside Rufus. The pattern repeated often enough that it stopped feeling like isolated incidents and started looking like a running contest between a trillion-dollar software company and a 1.9 megabyte utility maintained by one developer. The story of Rufus is not really about USB drives, registry edits, or ISO files. Those are simply the tools. The larger question has always been, who gets to decide what happens on your computer after you buy it? Microsoft's answer, expressed through hardware requirements, default applications, online account requirements, and installation choices, is that Microsoft should have an increasing say in that experience. Batard's answer, expressed through 15 years of free updates and a portable application that fits comfortably in your pocket, is that the owner of the computer should make those decisions. The 1.9 megabytes keeps winning, and every release that comes after this one becomes another chapter in that story. Right now, the score is not even close. If you found this useful, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that content like this is worth showing to people who want to know what is actually happening inside their own computers. And check the description for everything mentioned in this video.